intro?
I think what you just did is like everything that people need to know, except like not at all, because they're gonna be like, oh, this person is from the South. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Lesbian versus Baby Gay, except this week's episode is Lesbian versus Kira. Lesbian versus gender fluid, queer, soul in a human body. Kira Graves, everybody.
I love how you described that.
This is the series where I bring my other queer friends onto the channel and we answer your audience questions. It started as me identifying as a baby gay, and I would bring my older, wiser queer friends on. I don't know that I'm a baby gay anymore.
Yeah, I feel like it's been a while now. And also, like, I wouldn't say that I'm older or wiser than you, so.
So like the whole premise has just crumbled.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to be talking with you today because a little bit about me, cis, white, gay, lesbian lady. I get a lot of questions about gender, which I don't have a ton of lived experience to share, and so I want to dive into it with you. For any of you who don't know me, my name's Elena Joy. I make videos on this channel mostly about the queer community, dating, sex, relationships, but sometimes I bring my other queer friends on and we have a chat. This is Kira Graves, everybody.
Hey, what's up? My name's Kira. My pronouns are they, she. I am queer, and my gender is just soul in a human body. The way that I can connect to society is saying that I'm gender fluid, and that's kind of like the word that people understand more.
That's interesting because you're saying you use that term so that other people will understand you, or so that other people have a framework to like stick you in, whereas you personally feel differently.
I don't know, I've just let go of a lot of like the social constructs of gender.
Yes.
Like, and realizing that gender is a whole social construct, and like it's solely created by society and like gender roles. I don't believe in gender roles. So if I don't believe in gender roles, do I even believe in gender?
Right.
Because what is gender without the gender role?
Literally nothing. It crumbles.
So that's an interesting thing to ponder.
Okay, so we're gonna get into it. I've got some questions here. What are the first things that make you understand being a gender fluid person? How did you know? What were the things that helped you realize that you were gender fluid?
The first sign that made me question my gender was like not feeling like it was correct when people called me a woman, or like girl, ladies, and it just felt off for some reason, and I was like, why does this feel so weird? And so it was that, and then I just started thinking about gender a lot, and I started contemplating like, what really is it? And then I was like, it's kind of in my mind. Like, obviously some people need, you know, gender labels. A lot of people really like the concept of gender because it helps them understand themselves better, but I don't feel like it needs to be a part of my identity. And even though people are like, your gender identity, it's gender fluid, but I'm also like, I don't really want it to be an identity. I just want to be a human being. You know what I mean?
You're like, my concept of myself is outside of gender. It's separate from gender. Gender is not a part of my self-concept.
Yeah. I definitely associate with non-binary, I associate with gender fluid, but I also really associate with being a person with female experience. Being like a female identifying human. Because I really, really identify with being a female, but not a woman.
Are you saying because you've grown up socialized as female, you have like other people's putting of gender roles onto you has shaped who you are?
Yes, and how society just treats me when they look at me as female. It's shaped who I am a lot, and it's also been the subject of a lot of trauma too. So I identify with being female.
You're like, this is an important part of my identity. This is an important part of who I am, but it's not my gender.
Yeah, and not everyone will understand what I'm saying, because every time I try to explain my gender, people are like, you're contradicting yourself, you're so confusing, you make no sense, but it's like, it's fine if it makes no sense to you.
Like, it does make sense. I think it really does, because you're saying my gender identity gender identity is no gender. Like, gender's not a thing. But I also don't want to erase, forget, not acknowledge, stop living the experience of other folks identifying you as female in this world. Like, that has consequences, that has shaped your lived experience.
Well explained, Elena. It sounds validating to hear you explain it in a way that makes sense to you.
I want to go back to one of the first things you just said. One of the things you said about first realizing your gender fluidity was this feeling that something wasn't quite right when people would refer to you as a woman.
And it was also me just feeling more, bigger and more than what society has said about me.
That feels like empowering too. To be like, something about that didn't feel right, and one of the things that didn't feel right was like, I'm expansive. Like, I'm not confined to this box. And
I want to mention that there's some people that identify as women that feel the same way as me.
Oh,
it doesn't necessarily mean you're gender fluid if you feel this way, that like, oh, I'm more than what society has placed on me as a woman. You can still identify as a woman, you know? Because people always ask me about that. They're like, well, that doesn't make any sense because I feel this way, and like, I'm a woman, and like, I use she, her, and I'm like, that's cool, like, that's fine. It's literally down to like, what you feel most comfortable with.
For my experience, I do identify as a woman. I identify with my womanhood, she, her pronouns. The difference that I'm hearing in the way that you're explaining it and the way that I feel, or the way that I perceive my own gender, is that sense of discomfort or ickiness around somebody calling me a woman. Like someone saying, Elena, a woman, Elena, a girl, Elena, she, her, that lady. None of that has ever created a sense of dysphoria. It's never created a sense of like, oh, something's not right here. I identify with everything that you're saying about being like, me within my womanhood, I feel that sense of expansion. I feel that sense of like bigger than, but there isn't the piece of like, so something's not adding up. And I don't want to minimize that, because that could be somebody's first and possibly only sign of like, wait, maybe my gender isn't fixed, or maybe my gender isn't binary.
And I feel like I am male, I am man, I am woman, I am everything. I am not just woman. I feel like I'm just slowly detaching from societal constructs.
As a cis person, if I would think to myself, okay, I am man or I am non-binary, that doesn't feel right. But I am woman does. So like, what I'm trying to kind of drive home or like make the point of is that if what you're experiencing, audience member, person watching this, is simply that sense of like, something doesn't feel right. When somebody refers to me as whatever gender, something doesn't feel right. Like, that's enough to listen to. That can mean something. There's so much exploration that can come from that place. Like me realizing that I was gay, right? I thought, oh, well, like all women have these feelings toward women. This is how everybody feels. And learning that other people didn't feel that way was a big part of me being like, oh, this is something I should look at. So that's why I'm saying like, I don't feel that way.
Yeah, that's good to bring up for sure, because any feeling that you feel is valid.
Yeah.
You should never dismiss anything that you feel, because it's authentic and it's like, it's trying to tell you something. No matter what your kind of reasoning behind your gender identity is, the part that matters is like, you feel authentic.
You feel comfy.
Yeah.
How can someone that's non-binary have she, they, he pronouns, etc.? And I don't think this person is asking from like a disrespectful place. They seem genuinely curious. How can somebody use both they and she or her or whatever? How can someone have multiple pronouns?
I think it just comes down to what feels most authentic. If more than one pronoun feels authentic and it feels like it suits you, then you're allowed to use any pronoun you want.
I'm assuming that people who have this question would say like, how can you say that you're non-binary but then still identify with womanhood? Which I guess we kind of just talked about.
We just talked about that, yeah, exactly. And that's why I still use she. And sometimes I'm like, I get frustrated because, you know, having both they and she as my pronouns, some people just use she because it's easier and it's like what comes most easily to them by just looking at me. I feel both of them are me. But both, like not just one or the other. And so sometimes I've contemplated, should I just use they, them so it's easier for people? No, that doesn't feel right.
Yeah, it's just about what feels right. It's really hard to explain.
Yeah, it is hard to explain.
It's hard to put into words. When I read the question, I was like, oh, we can explain that easy. And then I'm like, well, wait, actually, how do you put it into words?
It's weird, because even people ask me like, when should I use they? When should I use she? And sometimes I don't even know when to use them, because sometimes like someone will be like, oh yeah, she, Kira, and I'll be like, yeah, that feels good. And then sometimes they'll be like she, and I'll be like, can you use they?
Yes. Okay, so here's something that I just thought of as a sort of possible parallel or like an example to use that's not queer. Tell me if I'm completely off base.
Okay.
Could it be similar to a name versus a nickname, and how in some instances it feels comfortable for certain people to call you by XYZ nickname, whereas in other contexts you feel more comfortable with people calling you by your full name or by whatever name?
That's like such a good example.
I think most people can understand the feeling of feeling comfortable with having a nickname that some people use, some people close to you use, or a certain group of people calls you this, but then if a different group of people or a different context you'd be called that same nickname, it wouldn't feel right.
Yes, and it comes down to like an identifying word. It identifies you.
Yes.
So do pronouns, as does a name. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
There you go, listener. Do you have nicknames?
That was an excellent analogy, Elena.
Okay, I'm glad it landed because I wasn't, yeah.
Pop off.
I want to text this girl so bad, but we've only talked a couple of times. Should I be direct with her? Yeah.
Yeah.
The end.
A lot of people ask, and they ask me this question too, and it's all about like, should I speak my mind? Like, should I communicate? And the answer is always yes.
There are two outcomes, right? Like you text her and she's into it, great. There you go, now you know. Or you text her and she's not into it, great, now you know. Now you can make your future choices with more information.
The answer is always being honest and communicating, and then you can figure out where to go from there.
100%. Okay, I like this one. Are there ways to explore your gender identity and expression aside from appearance?
Yeah, because your gender identity and expression isn't just how you look. It's also how you feel. There's feminine and masculine energies inside of you, and you can have both.
Do you have any suggestions on how someone could explore that? Because I'm guessing that this person wants to explore their gender, but doesn't want to change their appearance.
I recommend journaling about it.
Ooh.
Like writing down your thoughts. And like that is something that like, I don't know if I have tips for you, because I think that's inside of you and how you want to explore that. Journaling, you know, if you're into meditating, reading some books about gender and gender studies. Sometimes I visualize like what I would look like if I wasn't in this body. And I think there could be so many different expressions of it. But I also just feel like I'm a beam of light.
Oh, yes.
We are all energy.
Movement. I'm picturing dance.
Yeah.
Like I'm picturing putting on some music and exploring moving your body in different ways. Like how do you move your body to explore different gender expressions?
That's very interesting.
It could be a fun exploration.
Even in art and in any sort of creative outlet.
Lots of ideas.
Wow.
What do you think is the worst thing that you've put up with in a relationship?
Feeling like the other person doesn't fully embrace who I am. People who want to change you. I did put up with that. Like I really did even try and change myself for certain people, because I was like, oh, well, I want them to like me. Maybe I should show up in the way that they'll like me, but that will suck your soul out.
Yes, it'll suck your soul out of your human body. And then what will your gender be?
Non-existent, like not there.
That's a big one, but also a hard one, I think, to identify when you're in it, because you are battling that, like, I want them to like me.
Yeah.
When you have a feeling that something isn't right, listen to it. Too many times you look back and you're like, oh, that wasn't good from the start, and I knew it.
It's that gut feeling, that intuitive thought.
It goes back to what you were saying, that like every feeling is valid and feelings are trying to tell you something.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can't express that enough.
That's the take-home message of this video. How did your understanding of your attraction to women change over time? For example, bi to gay. You know, on my end of things, it wasn't so much a change in my understanding of my attraction to women. It was a change in my understanding of my attraction to men.
I think that there's periods of time where you can, you know, especially if you're bisexual or pansexual, like there's fluctuations in attraction towards different genders.
Absolutely.
That's what has happened with me. There were periods of time when I might have been more physically attracted to men. That has like shifted, and it also depends on who I'm talking to or like who it is I'm attracted to. I haven't really thought about that specifically for a while because I'm like married.
Yeah, I was like, you're like married. So
yeah.
If you weren't married, do you think that you would spend more energy thinking about your attractions, or are you very comfy with just like allowing the fluctuations to be as they are?
Yes, that. Any attraction that I have is like valid and like it's fine, and I don't really question that.
You have left society's constructs behind. You are like, gender, sexuality labels. I am who I am and I like who I like.
Yeah, like I've done a lot of like personal growth and self-discovery since I've been on YouTube. Slowly over time, I've just become less attached to all of the like earthly things.
So again, I repeat the question, how? For the viewer who's sitting at home going, I don't know if I'm attracted to men, I don't know if I'm bi, I don't know if I'm gay, I don't know if I'm trans. What were some of the first steps you took to leave the expectations and the pressure behind?
Okay, self-love. Maybe it sounds corny, but I have done so much work on my mental health and my mindset.
How? Someone watching this and going, I want that.
Okay. Therapy, reading personal growth books, meditation, yoga, honestly getting high and having deep chats with my partner.
Yes.
That is like one of the most healing things that I've done. So I would say like through spirituality, like through not necessarily like religion or anything, but my own concept of my spirituality. That has played a part in my gender identity journey and my sexuality journey, because it all encompasses like who I am. And it all comes down to your thoughts and also awareness, self-awareness.
Which is hard to have if you don't have the self-love piece, because then it's not safe. How do you create the safety within yourself to truly see yourself? It's like a cycle, right? Like a positive cycle.
Yes.
When you have the self-compassion and the self-love, you're allowed to see your truth, whether that's an easy or hard pill to swallow, because you know that whatever you see, you'll respond to with the compassion, with the love.
The more you do it, the more you're self-aware, the more you work on your mental health, I would say.
Yeah.
It's low-key mental health.
High-key mental health, like absolutely.
Yeah, you can't do these kinds of things sometimes when you're in an environment that suppresses you and stifles your true expression. So I think, you know, having my own apartment with the person that I love who also supports me is so crucial, because so many people are trying to come to terms with their identity in an environment that is not healthy.
And can we have some compassion and some grace and forgiveness for ourselves when we are in those positions?
It's so difficult. It's so difficult. And I've only been able to come to all these realizations finally creating like autonomy and independence and like a safe space for myself, because that's what I've always really needed to do this work, and I finally created it, and it's so I could cry.
I get it.
Have you heard of the hierarchy of needs?
Yeah, I knew it. I was like, I knew what they were gonna say. Maslow's hierarchy? Is that the guy?
Yes.
Maslow? Yes.
Okay, I just looking at that model and like just understand that like you have certain needs that you have to meet in order to get up the pyramid.
To go to the next level, yeah.
Go to the next level of your personal growth and discovery and all that.
Absolutely.
So you need to have like a safe space first and foremost, and like all the basic necessities.
This rewinds to what you were saying about something like journaling. Even if you're in a home or you're in a town or you're in wherever that isn't inherently an outwardly safe space, it doesn't mean that you can't work to create a safe space within yourself, right? Like through meditation, through self-compassion, those kinds of things.
Especially if you're young and like still rely on others. It's tricky, but at least if you can create a safe space of like within yourself, like that's all you need.
It's a place to start.
Yeah, it is. Be like the caretaker of yourself that you've always wanted and needed.
Yeah. Is there anything that we haven't touched on in terms of gender stuff? Like this is something I'd like to mention.
Have an open mind, I guess. Well, when listening to this conversation, when listening to yourself, and when listening to others,
being open to what you hear when you actually start listening to your feelings.
Yeah.
Right?
And when you're maybe doing some research or reading books, watching YouTube videos, like just keep an open mind and keep a curious mind.
That's all the questions that we'll answer today. Thank you for being here, Kira.
Thank you so much for having me. This was such a great conversation.
This was so good. I'm so excited to see this video go out. An extra huge thank you, as always, to my VIP patrons, my vitally important producers. You make my world go round. If you haven't checked out my Patreon, it's linked in the description. That is the way, the #1 way to support my content if you want to. That is how I continue making this queer stuff, and I don't have to worry so much about Daddy YouTube demonetizing me, age restricting me, all that fun stuff. Woo! Woo! Daddy YouTube, we love him. And we're gonna film another video now for Kira's channel, so that will also be linked in the description. Go check that out. And that's all for us. Thank you for watching. I love you very much, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!
Bye!
I just want to say I love everything that you have going on. The hair and the face and the outfit and the rings.
Oh.
I'm just like,
wow.
Kira.
Oh.
Kira.
Oh my god. Thanks, Elena.